Yeah, we'll do that. All right, so we are going to be, I'm Jen McCann. We're going to be doing, Kelsey Holt is going to be doing a presentation on the comparison trap. So I'll go ahead and mute my mic and turn it over to Miss Kelsey.
All right, thank you very much, Jen. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've put together a PowerPoint for everyone. So we'll be kind of going through this and discussing the comparison trap. I've put together just a few slides kind of highlighting some of the main takeaways from what I've read and learned about the comparison trap. And then I've also provided for you at the end of this some great resources that I think would be definitely worth reading through. And there's even a podcast that I think would be worth listening to as well if you're interested in learning more about the comparison trap. So in general today, we're going to be talking about avoiding the comparison trap. And so first things first, we need to know what is the comparison trap. So in general, the comparison trap is basically just this pitfall of negativity that we as consultants and we as people can fall into when we are comparing and measuring ourselves against other people's successes. And so it's not necessarily trying to point you out and make you feel bad about doing this comparison. It's natural. Everybody does it, especially with today's social media where everybody's lives are broadcast basically 24/7. It's natural to compare yourself to what you're seeing out there from other people. So this isn't to try to make you feel bad about having that natural instinct to compare yourself. It's about teaching you how to deal with it and how to do it in a productive way. And so basically we're looking at the comparison trap and saying, it's only a trap if we don't use this as a moment to move forward and to grow. So if we are stuck in this comparison and this negativity, that's when it becomes a trap. But if we can use this comparison to look at ourselves and get an introspective into what we need to change, then we can turn that negative into a positive. So the important takeaway from a comparison trap is you're not trying to compare your insides to somebody else's outsides. On social media, we can always look at what somebody is portraying, but we never really truly know what's behind the picture. So it's really not fair for us to compare to just a final finished product. So let's take a look at when the comparison trap becomes a bad thing and why it becomes a bad thing. And so in reading through the different articles and the podcast and prepping for this, one of the big takeaways that I got from this was a quote that was basically, envy isn't always bad, but complacency is. And so a lot of the resources and the podcasts that I have linked as a resource talks about that envy isn't necessarily a bad feeling to have, but jealousy is. Envy is just looking at someone and wanting what they have. And jealousy is more of a malicious intent behind it. And so we want to focus on turning envy into encouragement. And how do we turn that around? So when we stay in that negativity, that's when that comparison becomes a trap. We start to think more about how others are better than us and how we aren't doing what they're doing. And we start to feel down on ourselves. And that's really not what we want to be doing when we're looking at comparison. We want to try to be getting to that next level and talking about goals that we need to be achieving. So whenever you are thinking and starting to be negative, just take a step back and think about the reality. Perfection is an illusion. Whenever you see somebody posting these great pictures or talking about these great accomplishments they're making, that's just an illusion. They're talking about a finished product. I'm sure everything working up to that was not perfection. There is a lot that goes into that. And also when you're thinking about this comparison trap, it's important to know that when you fall into that negative realm of the comparison trap, it really is turning your friends and allies into your rivals. So rather than looking at these people as a source of encouragement and a source of boosting you to where they are, you start turning them into your rivals and you're competing against them rather than working with them. And so, and in general, it's just one of those things to remember that life isn't always fair. Some people, it just works and it comes easy to them, and it's not like that for everybody. Life isn't fair. And so this isn't about everybody having apples to apples, oranges to oranges, life is perfect and everybody's hunky-dory. This is about finding what works for you and pushing yourself to the next level. Sorry, my next button's not working and it's throwing me off. So let's talk a little bit more about when comparison can be a good thing. It's not always a trap. It's not always a negative. We can turn those negatives into a positive. So how do we turn the negatives into a positive? We turn that envy into encouragement. We turn it into an admiration. We are using that comparison and looking at what somebody else has. And obviously that means we want what they have. So rather than just being jealous of what they have, we can learn more about ourselves and what our goals are and what we're trying to accomplish. What do they have that I don't, that I need to get to? And so it can help you look at what your own goals are while also helping you kind of troubleshoot any obstacles that might be standing in the way. What do they have, or what are they doing that you're not doing that is helping them be successful in the same things that you're trying? And so it's important to realize that being in the comparison mode says more about ourselves than it does others. It really unveils more about what you're wanting and what your fears are than it does about the other person. And it really is important for you when you are comparing yourself to others to avoid falling into that trap, to find ways that you can mirror what they're doing, but tweaking it just a little bit so that it feels genuine to you. That way you can make it work for you. Just doing exactly what somebody else is doing isn't going to work for you because you're not them. You're not them. You're not their group. You don't have their sales. You don't have their backstory. You need to find a way to make what they're doing work for you. And so that's really what we need to be doing when we're looking at this comparison trap, is finding out what do they have that I want and how can I make myself get to that level. So it's about bettering ourselves more than we were yesterday, not about bringing ourselves up to somebody else's level. So in general, when you are feeling like you're falling into that comparison trap and you're just constantly feeling that negativity coming at you, these are just some quick tips to help avoid that trap and to kind of reset yourself and take a step back and think a little bit more about what's going on. So the biggest thing is to have empathy and compassion for yourself. Don't be so down on yourself thinking that you can't accomplish that or you're never going to get that. Take a step back, realize what you've already accomplished, and have a little bit of empathy for yourself. It is important to not necessarily create a judgment. If you are judging yourself or judging somebody else, that's just a negative pattern that you want to try to break. So judgment, whether it's yourself or somebody else, just creates negativity. So try to break out of that with the compassion and empathy. Number two, when you are use the comparison as an opportunity to accept, appreciate, and love yourself. So you want to use this as a cue to redirect yourself. You don't want to use this as a way to feel down on yourself. Redirect. Think about what you have right now that mimics and mirrors what they're doing and how you can enhance that skill or that mindset to reach the next level. Next, you want to be willing to admit your own jealousy. It's fine to be jealous of people. Everybody is at some point, and it's natural to want what somebody else has. And so if you were feeling negative because you're jealous, and then you're just going to keep creating this cycle of negativity. So you want to try to break that and just be willing to admit that, yes, I am jealous. They are killing it. Or their outfit making skills are just amazing and I am not at that level yet. But what can I do to learn and become that good? The next thing you want to do is be willing to acknowledge the people that you compare yourself to. So it's not, those people aren't getting these killer sales and aren't making these amazing accomplishments just by pure luck. They are doing the work. You are seeing a finished product and you have no idea what goes into it. So you need to acknowledge those people that you are comparing yourself to and know that there's hard work that goes into it. And so part of that can be reaching out to that person and saying, hey, I see you've done a really great job in your online sales every week and you're having really consistent sales. I'm really struggling. I think you're doing a great job. I want to know what you're putting into it. What's the behind the scene work? Because you don't just post your albums and people comment sold. We all know that's not how life works. So be willing to acknowledge that there's hard work behind those people that you are admiring, and be willing to find out what's working for them, what's not, and tweak it for yourself.
I think that one, Kelsey, is like the biggest one in our business. I hear it all the time. People say, oh, well, they just got into the business at the right time. And I feel like that is not admitting the jealousy. And that's not acknowledging that you're comparing yourself. And honestly, what you said is exactly right. It's not luck, no matter who they are. You know, if you even talk to people like Lindsay Wheeler, yes, she got into the company pretty early, but it was super hard for her in the beginning, and it still is. If you've ever watched her page, she busts ass. She's on there all the time. She completely rephotographs her own inventory every single time she has a sale. So that one I feel like is super, super, super important point, Kels.
Yeah. And I mean, I've heard people say the same thing about, oh, well, they got in early and there wasn't a lot of competition. I think some of my hardest sales are when people haven't heard of LuLaRoe and they're like, oh, tights, no way. Oh, a dress that's slim fitting, no way. I think that's almost harder than somebody who knows a little bit about the product and a little bit about the brand and then just kind of delving them deeper into it. So yeah, I mean, those people are pioneers. They have paved the path for us. So we need to bow. And the final thing in order to avoid the trap is if all else fails and you are trying to have empathy for yourself, you're trying to appreciate yourself and you're trying to admit the jealousy and acknowledge what that person is doing, if all else fails, just look away. How easy is it to just not log on to Facebook, not go to their group, just look away? It's better for your health and your mental stability if you are constantly on Facebook and trolling these things and just it's leading to this pitfall. Just look away, focus on yourself, focus on your group, focus on what you can do for the next day. And that's going to be the biggest thing. Spending an unhealthy amount of time on focusing on others is harmful and unhealthy. We all know that. And it's the same thing for you. So if you are one of those people killing it and you have people around you who are not acknowledging your hard work and not willing to admit that they are jealous of you, you need to distance yourself from them. And the same idea. It's negativity is just a pitfall that everybody is going to get dragged into. So whether it's you feeling like you have the negative feelings or you feel like somebody's having the negative feelings towards you because they don't feel like you're worthy of your own success, distance yourself completely. You are worthy of everything you're doing. The last slide that you'll see here are some questions that you can kind of prompt and pose to yourself when you feel like you are in that trap and you're not quite sure what to do, or you're not quite sure how to process these feelings and what to be doing next. These are some questions to be asking yourself to try to aim towards those goals and creating that list of what you can be doing. So in general, when you feel like you're falling into that comparison trap, try to look at who you're looking at and who you're comparing yourself to and ask, what do they have that I wish that I had? And how does that relate to my own values? So trying to always bring it down and bring it back to your core values and how that relates to you as a person. What have they done to get where they are today? So once again, it's not pure luck, like Jen said. It's not just throwing pictures up in an album. What are they doing to get where they are today? There is a process. There is a lot of work that goes into it. Find out what that is. Ask yourself what you admire about them. There are people that I watch in their live sales and they act like there is no camera on. And I feel like that is not how I am. I'm constantly looking at myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that hair out of place? Like, what is happening? And there are people that they go on camera and it is like, this is like what they were made to do. They were made to be a model. They were made to be in front of the camera. So, I mean, there are people that I look at and I admire and I wonder, what are they doing that I'm not doing? What are they modeling for me? And so it's for me, it's self-consciousness. I've always been self-conscious and I still am. And so I'm working on that innate part of me that just makes me wonder where my hair is and where it's laying. Think about what qualities in them inspire you. I don't know. I'm sure all of us are members of and follow some of the leaders' pages. Lisa Jones, I follow her religiously. I think she's adorable. And if I could be somebody, I would be Lisa Jones. She inspires me. She works her tail off, and that's why she inspires me. If you follow her, that girl is posting literally live videos like 4 times a day. She's posting on retail therapists. She's doing outfits. She's photographing. I mean, she is working her business day and night. And that's inspiring to me. And so, I mean, it's not about me being jealous. It's about me hoping that one day I can work this business that well. And also try to give yourself credit. Where do you already embody some of those qualities that you're seeing in this person that you are hoping to aspire to be? I'm sure all of us have a little bit of those qualities. And I know when I first did my first live sale with Jen, I was so nervous. I couldn't do it by myself. I had to have Jen do it with me. And she came back to me a couple of days later and said, you know, all of the girls in my shop were so happy with the live sale. They thought you were so natural. They thought you just did such a great job. And that made me feel good. It made me feel like, oh, maybe I wasn't checking my hair the entire time. So try to give yourself a little bit of good credit where credit's due. Next question you want to ask yourself, how might my expression of these qualities differ from theirs? So this is where it kind of comes back to, even though you want to look at what others are doing and think about the process of what got them there, you also want to tailor it to yourself. Make sure it's genuine to you. You can't just mimic exactly what somebody else is doing and think that it's going to work and think that it's going to feel genuine. I know that if I were to go on and do exactly what somebody else is doing, it's not going to feel genuine. It's not going to be me. If I use somebody else's words, it's going to be forced. And when people feel it being forced, they feel it as a gimmick. They feel it's being salesy, and they don't want to be a part of it. So find what works for you and make it your own. And the last question to ask yourself when you're trying to get out of that trap is, what can I learn from my desire to embody those qualities more fully? So in general, just what can you learn about yourself? So if you know where you want to be, you know who you're aspiring to be and who's kind of your role model and what your goals are to get to where they are, what can you learn from trying to get to that? So these are just questions to kind of bring you back to the core of the comparison trap and how to get out of it and how to kind of get back to who you are as a person, appreciating yourself, recognizing where you are, and trying to get to the next stage. And so in general, the comparison trap, it's really about comparing yourself to others rather than yourself. It's a trap when you look at somebody else and you try to pinpoint and pick apart every single way that you aren't doing what they're doing versus looking at where you were yesterday and saying, this is where I was and this is where I am now. And I may not be at Lisa Jones level, but I am 2 steps above where I was last week. And so recognizing that is the most important thing. And you'll notice on this last slide of the PowerPoint that we've provided, there are articles that kind of bring in a bunch of the different points that I've made and even highlight a lot more that I did not talk about. And if you have 32 minutes and some odd seconds, I think, this podcast at the bottom is amazing. They are huge nerds, so be ready for that. But they're super entertaining. And they talk a lot about, Jen and I were talking earlier about the book that they constantly reference in this podcast. It's called Mindset, and it's by the social psychologist that talks a lot about how to break out of the fixed mindset into the growth mindset. So one of the analogies they give is Tiger Woods and how Tiger Woods was this child prodigy who became this golf legend, right? And he won all of these master tours or whatever they call them. And I'm not a big golf person, but he won all of these awards. And then all of a sudden he comes back and he starts losing. And so it could have been super easy for him to say, you know, I've made all of this money at this point. I've won all of these tours. I'm not doing well right now. Like, I just need to retire. This is the end of my career. But instead of doing that, he went back and he said, okay, these are skills that I need to work on and enhance because there are these other athletes coming up that are excelling in areas that I'm not. And so these are areas I need to work on. And so he went back, he set goals, he worked on those, and he came back and he started winning again. And so there's a difference between the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And that's basically a good summarization of what the comparison trap is. It's getting yourself out of the fixed mindset to where you feel like this is where I am. I'm never going to reach this level. And learning about how you can grow step by step, setting goals and learning more about yourself to get to that level and prepare yourself to move. And so that, in summary, is my takeaway of the comparison trap. How do I end this, Jen?
I got it. You guys can unmute your mics. Does anybody have a question about anything that she said of how this relates to the business, or do you have an experience that you have a question about? I know I personally get.
I do.
Yeah,
Can
go
I?
ahead. You go.
Okay, so how do you balance this comparison when, like, for me, like, okay, so I'm like super new, but my goal is to someday like cruise qualify, like maybe the second half of this year. I don't know. But like you said something, Jen, I think last month, like make it your goal to like double what you did the previous month.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to double would be almost cruise qualifying. But like I knew it wasn't going to happen this month because my son is graduating from high school. And so like this weekend. And so I had to take this weekend off to have his grad party and do all of this stuff. So I guess my question is like, how do you not compare yourself to like other people and their circumstances when like they're at where you want to be?
Yeah, it's
Does that
really hard.
I mean, so in general, I think that goes back to kind of the ways that you avoid the trap and just.
Uh-oh, she froze. Are we all frozen?
You're in is not the same situation as everybody else. And so, I mean, maybe it may not be realistic for you this month to set a goal that's twice what you sold last month. If there's an entire week or weekend that you have to take off for personal reasons, for life, because life happens. And so I think it goes back to that, having compassion for yourself. It's okay to model yourself after somebody else, but also realize that life happens.
And also look at what do you have to sell? Like when I first started, I was thinking, oh my gosh, how did these people sell all this? But I had a 500 piece inventory. For me to sell 12,000 in a month, that means I would be selling my entire inventory, and that doesn't happen. You can't sell a single piece. So you have to think about that. I still get stuck in the trap every now and again. I mean, I'm a year and a half in, and there are people that are much newer than me that have higher sales than me sometimes, and it's really hard. I think that it just goes back to looking at what they're doing that you can do. Even if you don't get to be exactly where they are, at least it makes you get a little bit better. She spoke about Lisa Jones. I watch her all the time. I know she works so hard, and she's struggling to cruise qualify right now as well. So I'll just look at little ideas that she does. Like I saw that she's been posting, instead of live sales, she's been doing little mini videos for people. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, that's an idea. I can try that too. So I guess just try to, instead of comparing, take that like what you want and see what they're doing that can help you get there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
And congratulations on the graduation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it'll be better because when he moves in the fall, I get his room at the basement for to expand my room. So,
yeah.
I mean, I love him and I'll miss him.
I don't know.
As I drink my wine after today.
Yes. I used to, when I first started, I would look at, I saw pictures of Lindsay Bartow, and she was really the only consultant I knew because she was my sponsor. And I saw her boutique on Instagram, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I told my husband, like, what do I have in this tiny office? And I would just compare. But he said to me, almost like this whole comparison trap, he's like, okay, so let's make that your goal to get there. What do we have to do to get there? And it literally like made my mindset, instead of a jealousy, it made it almost that growth mindset of, okay, my goal is here in this amount of time. What are the steps I need to take to get there? And I would literally, it was a monetary goal, and I would literally put it in my planner, my LuLaRoe planner, and check off each step along the way.
Right.
Yeah, instead of making you jealous, it gives you a drive.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Anybody else have questions, or go ahead, Jen?
Somebody asked a question that I'm curious about, like how much inventory do we need to be to like cruise qualify? Because I have put not everything, but everything minus like what I use for shipping and like buying supplies, like back into inventory. Like I've added, and I'm going to continue to add, and my husband is very understanding about me paying him back his bonus check that he still hasn't seen. But
I know it's tough at the beginning. Yes, you feel like you're working for free. I remember like a month and a half in, I was crying like, I'm working so hard. I'm working 2 jobs. I'm not making a penny. But honestly, when I started selling around 12,000 a month, when my inventory got to be in between 800 and 1,000 pieces.
okay.
And, consistently, I posted a chart a while ago on Team Dream. I can see if I can find it again about the number of items you order in a month that coordinates with your sales. And I literally have been tracking for 6 months, and it is to the T accurate. I mean, it's bonkers, but it says that if you're ordering in between 250 and 300 pieces in a month, that you're going to sell in between 12 and 14,000. I mean, every single month, if I've ordered less than 250 pieces, I barely make it to that mark. And I think it's just that constant influx of inventory coming in.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard at the beginning because you don't want to dig yourself in a deeper hole, but it's what keeps you competitive in this market, you know? So I found my sweet spot around 800 to 1,000. Now I carry more just because I have the space.
Right. Which I won't have until August.
Yeah, and that's great. I didn't have it for a long time. It was almost a year in, so.
I won't ever have that. Our dining room is my new LuLaRoe room, and it is packed to the peak.
And it's lovely.
Thank you.
Yes, it doesn't have to be. I mean, everybody's is different. Anybody else have question? Let me see who else is on here. Colleen, Ashley, questions. I know, Colleen, you said this was a good topic for you. Anything specific?
No, honestly, I just kind of had a rough day.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've had a rough month.
Yeah. Oh, girl, it has been brutal. But
yeah. Well, my
all
husband's been
businesses
deployed
go
for
this
the
way.
past couple weeks,
Mhm.
so I homeschool my kids, and my husband's been gone. So like this month, I have literally, I feel like I've done absolutely nothing. So.
It's really super tough. What I can say about those, when you don't have time for events, if you can even like scrape up 30 minutes to throw some outfits together or put a picture of you up in something from your inventory just to make that's customers really respond to that. Also, it's tough right now. And Jen, for you to be starting in this and still doing well, I mean, that's amazing because right now is a tough spot, honestly. But Lindsay Bartow said something to me yesterday that really spoke to me, or maybe it was actually Crystal. It was Crystal Schlicker. Real estate. This business can be compared to real estate. When the market's really high, all these people, they go and decide to get their real estate license, and they're like, oh, I want to make a quick buck. I want to get in now. Now's the time. And then they do great. They make some money. And then as soon as the market drops, they're done. They're out. Well, those people who don't get out when the market drops a little bit, they continue to work their business. They may have to work a little bit harder. They may have to work more hours, but eventually the market swings back up again, and then they're on top. So I would say just keep your focus. It's tough for everybody. I mean, I've been in the business for a year and a half, and this and last month have been the toughest months I've ever had. So just know that it's going to get better. We are literally going to be on an upswing, and then it'll all be gravy. Anybody else?
Can I ask a question that's not comparison related?
Of course.
Okay, so what do you guys do in your vacation? Because I'm vacationing next month, but I have 9 pop-ups booked between June 13th and June 30th. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it. But what do you do for ordering? Like, do you order it to arrive when you get? I have a house sitter, so she'll be able to get it. But like, how do you vacation? Like, how do you put your shop on vacation? What do you do?
It's tough because I will tell you that the only time I took off is when I went on the cruise, and it was tough to get back in. When I came back, my page was dead. It was like digging myself out of a giant hole. I honestly, my feeling is if you're on vacation, still run your weekly sale, even if nothing is new. If you can just post like 1 or 2 times and tell your people, hey, I'm on vacation, but I still want to make my inventory available. Just know it's not going to ship until I get home. I'm not going to invoice you right now. Just to keep consistent. I mean, I personally feel like anytime when you cancel, it's just really hard to keep the momentum going. But
Okay.
you are a person too. You deserve that.
Right.
I would agree with Jen. And one thing that I've seen people do when they go on vacations that tends to get a lot of activity on their page nonetheless is like Jen was saying earlier, Lisa Jones pre-recorded some videos of her inventory so that as she was gone, she could post a video each day or every other day. So she like might have a stack of leggings and have numbers, and she would just quickly roll through the leggings with a number. And so at least it's something on her page to get people on there looking at it. If they comment sold, she can deal with it when she gets home. So that's one thing to do. You can pre-record some quick videos of some of like your favorite things and some of your favorite patterns for people to shop while you're gone.
So does it have to be a sale? Like my other question, like I'm going to Disney. So I honestly thought about doing like a Disney like scavenger hunt each day. Like, like tell me where I am, and then everybody that figures it out will be entered to win something. And we're going on a cruise, but
yeah, do that. That was going to be my
Absolutely.
next thing was like when Kim and Whitney went on the cruise,
Yep.
they didn't do sales, but they did a giveaway or something like that each day to get people on their page. And then when they got back, they did and drew winners for all the giveaways.
Yep.
Also, and I don't know if, because you're just starting out, so I don't know if you're in the position for this, but Jen Crishfield's my sponsor, and while she was on the cruise, I'm pretty sure she had one of the girls on our team come on and do a sale on her page. As
Yes.
yeah, so
yeah, that's a great idea.
okay.
so it kept it busy on her page, but I don't know how you feel about that if you're still starting out, but it seemed like a really good idea.
Yeah, my page, it was really good. Jen Bender actually did it on my page. She had a pretty successful sale. Even if you don't do sales, what I'm learning through this marketing social suite is that honestly, the more that you just relate to your customers and put yourself out there and get engagement up, that's how you build your whole community. So honestly, if you want to take a total vacation, that's totally fine. You're a human being. That's why you do this business. It's flexible. So I would say go ahead and do that. Just make sure you at least like post every now and again on your page. So.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you though on the engagement. Like today was a fundraiser, and last night it was gonna tank, and I made my person post today like what the fundraiser was for and where she was going, and I sold double today what I did last night. So like I was just like, you can post, like tell them what you're doing, tell them why you're raising the money.
That's great.
And yeah, I mean, it's going to cost me $51 out of pocket because that's what the fundraiser total was. But hey, I mean, that's okay. Like,